All right. So quick look at today's agenda. So each one of these things we try and keep a little bit different. We'll continue to do that going forward. So today I'll give a quick intro. We'll talk some quick transition tips just in general. I'll talk a little bit about why Indiana and why INvets, why you might want to work with us as an organization. And then we'll get to our employer spotlight. So today we're going to spend a little bit more on this portion of the event. So today's featured employer is Lowe's. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Lowe's. We've got, obviously a lot of different locations around Indiana, and they also have one of their major distribution centers here in southern Indiana. So excited to get to that portion. But first, I thought I'd give you a little introduction to myself. So usually if you've joined us in the past for these things, I talk very briefly, and I kind of let Blaine, our director of veteran engagement, talk for most of kind of the middle of this portion. But Blaine is actually on AT assignment right now with the Indiana National Guard. So I'd give you a little bit of background on myself. So that's my picture of me back in the day. Got out of the military in 2015, served in the Army. I was an infantryman for 5 years on the enlisted side. Originally from southern Indiana, just about as far south and as far west as you can get in Indiana, right on the Kentucky border. Went and did my undergrad, got an undergrad degree in finance, but ultimately decided that I wanted to go that infantry route. So I got out after 5 years. That was my plan from the very beginning. Came here to Indianapolis, earned my MBA from Indiana University in downtown Indianapolis. And I ended up getting a full-time job at a economic development focused nonprofit. Focuses on building Indiana's economic infrastructure. And through that process, I talked to a ton of employers in rural communities, urban communities, all throughout the state of Indiana. And a lot of them said the same thing. They said, we have far more jobs than we have people. We've got these great paying jobs. We've got a low cost of living. We've got a great quality of life. There's just not enough people here to fill these jobs. And having just gone through the transition process myself and knowing how confusing that can be, I know I would have worked at any number of these companies if I had only known about them. So long story short, over about a year and a half of talking to a lot of these employers, talking with the state government in Indiana, we ended up launching INvets as a nonprofit that's heavily partnered with the state of Indiana. We're primarily funded by the state of Indiana, but we are a nonprofit. So I'm not a state employee. And our purpose as INvets is to provide that connection point between transitioning service members, military spouses, veterans at large, and these employers all throughout the state, along with additional resources. But we'll get to that here in a second. So first thing I'd like to do, instead of kind of, a lot of times Blaine will give a class over, resume writing, something like that. Today I thought I'd just share some quick transition tips that I've seen over these past few years that INvets has been around. Things that I wished I had known when I got out of the military, and things that I commonly see as being challenges for transitioning service members. I do want to point out too, just some general housekeeping rules. Feel free to jump into the chat. Over there on the right side of your screen, you can hit chat, you can enter in questions, you can communicate with some of our team members that are in that lobby. If you do have a question, I'll try and keep tabs on it. That's what I'm looking at this whole time while I'm talking. So I'll try and answer in real time. We want to try and keep this as conversational as possible while still managing the logistics as smoothly as we can. Also, I'm sure Jerry or somebody we'll share some of our contact information in the chat, some of our LinkedIn profile URLs. Feel free to add all of us. There we go, on LinkedIn. We want to connect with you. We want to be a resource to you, answer any questions you might have, even if it's not during this session itself. So let's jump right in. So first tip, and this might seem obvious, but it's humility. Be humble. We all know, I know myself, as I got out as a non-commissioned officer, an infantryman, I thought I was, I wouldn't have said that I was hot stuff, but, it's definitely in the back of your mind. You've got that ego. You've done a lot of things in the military that you're very proud of, and you should be proud of them. However, it's important to realize that you're entering an entirely different environment. And while what you did is very admirable, a lot of it's very challenging. It's a huge accomplishment. That doesn't necessarily mean that it translates directly into what a civilian employer is looking for. A lot of it is going to be very useful to you. It's going to give you a huge leg up. It's going to make you ultimately successful, but there's going to have to be this adjustment period. And it's important to realize that that adjustment period exists, because if you don't, if you just blow through it and think you're going to conquer the world in the civilian sector exactly like you handled it in the military, you're going to have some issues. The veterans that I see from our perspective, we deal with hundreds, thousands of veterans really going through this process. The ones that are successful are the humble ones, the ones that understand that they've got something to learn no matter how experienced they are, no matter how high ranking they are. We work with multi-star generals through our program. And if they come into it with humility, they're going to do phenomenally well. The ones that really struggle are the ones that come in and try and, they got that chip on their shoulder and they try and, they look around at their civilian counterparts in their new company that haven't been through the military. They're the ones that are always pointing out, what their service was, what they did in the military, how the military does things. And it just doesn't go very well. Second thing I would say is network. So this kind of goes along with that first one, having the humility to go out and ask for help, talk to people. It's one of the few things I did right in my transition. I didn't do near enough planning. I thought I've got 63 days of terminal leave saved up. That's more than enough time to go out and find that killer job. In fact, I'm going to go take a vacation for a couple of weeks with my wife, decompress. Just got done with this stint in the military, and then I'll go out and find a job. That's not enough time. I'll tell you that's not enough time. But what I did do right is I did network, and that ultimately is what landed me that job at that economic development focused nonprofit. So what I did, the way I tackled it, there's several different ways. There's great tools out there like LinkedIn. What I did is I had a brother-in-law that worked in the city. He knew a lot of contractors. He knew people in a lot of different industries, and I just asked if he would make introductions for me. And I'd find people in as many different industries as I could find. I'd ask them if I could buy them a cup of coffee, a lunch, stop by their office and just pick their brain for 30 minutes. And I'd come with a set list of questions. And usually the last question was, and generally these are people further along in their career. So I'd say, if you had a son or a daughter my age, what would be your advice? What career would you recommend that they go into? What's the hot job right now? What has the good pay, the good work-life balance, what would you recommend? And some people said, don't come to my industry. You get overworked, you get underpaid, it's a hard life. Other people said, hey, if you put in the time and effort in my industry, you can make a lot of money. It was just a really good and insightful time period. Now, what I did not do going into those conversations is I didn't ask them for a job, right? If you go in simply asking for advice, eventually that can turn into a job offer, but usually it turns into somebody saying, you know what, I'm going to introduce you to one or two other people in my network that I think you might be interested in. Many times it's that second or third order connection that ends up actually landing the opportunity. Now, the job I actually got, believe it or not, I met my former boss at that economic development nonprofit at a bar. Honestly, my wife and I, was our anniversary. We went to Hotel Tango. Shout out to them. They're a local veteran-owned distillery here in downtown Indianapolis. We went there for a drink after dinner. Ended up bumping into a guy. Ended up talking to him for just about an hour, and found out that he used to be very high up in a company called Rolls-Royce, which is a defense contracting manufacturer here in downtown Indianapolis. Asked him if I could buy him a cup of coffee and pick his brain. About 2 months later, he called me up and said, hey, I've got this job. I know you haven't ever considered something like this, but I think you'd be a good fit. Why don't you come in for an interview? So, that's how a lot of this stuff happens. It's not necessarily immediate, which is why you need to get ahead of the curve on this thing. But that networking really can pay huge dividends, and the INvets team is definitely here to help in that regard. Next tip is consider the employer over the position. So there's an asterisk on this because it's not always the case. So for example, there are some employers that we work with that are union shops, for example. So they've got a high level of union employees within their organization, then they have management, and there's very little crossover between the two. But generally speaking, my general advice is find the right employer. Find the employer that values its employees, that treats them well, that provides opportunities for advancement, that invests in their talent. Find something that you think you could enjoy doing on a daily basis. Contrary to the common saying, even if you love what you do, it's still going to be work sometimes. You're not always going to love what you do. It's always going to be some element of grind, of work and everything. But if you like it, the majority of the time, that's really what you're looking for. And I would choose the employer over the position. So we get a lot of veterans that say, you know what, I was an E6, I was an E7, I should be in management, I should be a project manager, I should be, going into a similar leadership position. My recommendation, generally speaking, is find the right employer. And if you prove that you have leadership capability and you're smart and you're motivated, you'll get that position you want. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, but if it's the right employer, they're going to have that avenue for you to get into that right position. But if you hold out for the exact right job title from the very beginning, you're going to have some challenges, generally speaking. There's always that one crazy story you hear about the guy who got out as an E3 and now makes $200,000 a year. But I'm here to tell you it's like 1 out of 1,000 people that runs into that situation, if that. The next one is be flexible. So kind of along those same guidelines of looking for that lateral transfer directly. So, I come from an infantry background, and anybody I run into from that kind of line of work, what I sometimes tell them is, take somebody like Elon Musk, right? So super genius, super motivated, extreme work ethic. If tomorrow you threw him into an infantry platoon, you would not want to put him in charge of that platoon, right? Probably doesn't know how to shoot, probably doesn't know battle drills, doesn't know the right form of communication. Now, because he's super smart and motivated and all of those things, he's probably going to advance very quickly, but you're going to have to start him off at a more junior position. And that's kind of how, not that any of us are an Elon Musk, but that's kind of how I recommend that we look at moving into these new industry fields, into these new teams. All of these tools, whether it's soft skills like motivation and communication skills and all of that the military gave you, or whether it's technical skills, they are going to be a huge edge above your competition, and you will most likely advance quicker than your civilian counterparts. But you've got to be humble enough to come in and learn the field, learn the industry, learn the company before you expect to just be put in charge of the organization or a significantly large team. So be flexible. And the other thing is be flexible on location. So if somebody comes to us and they say, hey, I'm just looking for a good position where I can leverage the skills the military gave me, I can make a decent living in a decent community and have good growth potential. We can do that all day long throughout the state of Indiana. Where we run into issues is where somebody says, hey, I want to live in this specific town. It's the town I was born in. I know it's only got 10,000 people, but I want to make at least 70 grand a year in this specific industry. And sometimes that just doesn't exist in some of these communities. So being flexible with your geographic area. So maybe your family's in a certain area and maybe you want to be within an hour, 2 hours, an easy drive, that's doable. But that flexibility is key. So this last one is seek help, but own your own transition. So there's a lot of great organizations out there. Obviously we're here to help you if you're seeking employment here in the state of Indiana. We'll help you in any way we can. There's a lot of other great organizations as well. There's national organizations. There's some, more localized organizations. We can definitely point you in the right direction for additional resources. We want you to tap into as many resources as you can. However, at the end of the day, it's still your transition. It's your future, and nobody is going to do all the work for you. So it's important that everyone takes ownership over your transition, ownership over your career pathway, and that you put in the time, put in the effort. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can do that within our organization here in a second. All right, so INvets. We officially started right at the beginning of 2018, traveling to bases. We are a 100% veteran-run organization. Everyone on our team, we're now up to 6 full-time team members. We are all veterans ourselves. We understand the process that you're going through. And what we do is we provide a digital connection point between you and employers that are specifically seeking military talent. We have over 150 employers in our network. And as of about 6 months ago, there were over 85,000, actually over 100,000 open positions across the state of Indiana. Now, the reason that has an asterisk is because of COVID. So obviously that has changed the game a little bit. And what we've seen from our perspective is a lot of employers are in kind of a wait and see mentality right now. Some of them are still posting jobs, but they're on a hiring freeze. They're not actually filling those jobs yet. Some are laying people off, they're downsizing depending on their industry, and some are still hiring just as much as they were 6 months ago. So there's really a mixed bag. But what you'll see is there is just generally a lot more uncertainty, obviously, in the market. And so a lot of employers, even if they are still hiring, are maybe hiring at a slower pace, that type of thing. What you'll see on our website is we have a lot of information on a few key industry pathways here in the state of Indiana, so healthcare, logistics, manufacturing, and technology. So Indiana, just in general, is the #1 manufacturing per capita state in the country. It's a huge part of our economy, and logistics is right there behind it. Those two go hand in hand. Healthcare is big, just like it is everywhere in the country, and then we have this really growing tech sector. That's burgeoning, especially in Indianapolis, but really throughout the state as well. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of partnerships with local and national veteran service organizations. So you'll see some of those listed on our website under veteran resources if you hit the more button at the top right-hand corner. But it's our website. We tried to develop it to where you could be like me. When I got out, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was going to figure it out all on my own. I didn't need anybody's help. We tried to build our website in a way where you could benefit from us and not talk to a single person. You can go in there and look at resources and companies and jobs, but we've also got a great team that can be here to help. So Jerry's on here. He's one of our veteran engagement managers. He's in the chat right now. He's there to answer your questions, and a lot of times we can give recommendations if we'd love to be the organization that can solve all your problems and give you the boost that you need. But if we know another organization that could be useful, we'll make that intro as well. So again, our website, we've tried to build it to be kind of the core of our offering to the veteran community, with our team backing it up and smoothing out any inefficiencies. This is a brand new site. It just got launched about a month ago, so bear with us. If you run into any kinks in the system, any broken links, anything like that, please let us know. Just when you think you've ironed it all out, you'll find another thing that somehow slipped through the cracks. So be sure to check that out. So the way this process generally works. So if you go to our website, there'll be an option to sign up and create a profile. This puts you automatically on the radar of employers. So that 150 plus employers in our system, they can go in there and they can browse, sort, keyword search veteran profiles. But then creating a profile also gives you the chance to check out career pathways within the site. See currently open positions, submit your application, and then tell us you applied. So there'll be a link that pops up when you view a open position. If you follow the link to the application, come back to our website, a little question will pop up. Did you apply? If you click yes, that automatically sends an email directly to the veteran point of contact at that company that says, hey, this specific veteran just applied for this specific job, so they can be on the lookout for you. It's a very, very important step. So, I mentioned you can explore careers on our website. So we've got key industries, technology, for example. Within technology, you can learn about the industry, but then we also break down specific career pathways. Not all technology jobs are coding. Some of it's sales, some of it's data science. There's a lot of different facets. And then we map each of those individual career pathways to the relevant employers in our network that are currently hiring out of those pathways. So if you're like me and you don't know what industry to go into, it could be a really useful tool to go in and explore things maybe you wouldn't have thought of before and follow that trail all the way down to the open positions that are available today. Each employer profile, or so one of the big things we've been trying to do over this past month, now that the website is launched, is we're trying to get each of those 150 employers we work with to go in and create a profile that looks kind of like this. So this is Allison Transmissions. You can see it's got info, it's got open jobs, pictures, videos. Now this is a lot of content, so it takes employers a little bit to go in and create all of this content. So we don't have all 150 up now, but that list is growing pretty much daily. So let's get to some key benefits from Indiana real quick. So first, big benefit for Indiana, for veterans in Indiana rather, is that if you have a disability rating, now there's a bunch of nuances to this, but essentially there's a good chance your kids will go to a university for free. So for example, me, I joined in 2010, got out in 2015. I've got a 50% disability rating. Any of my kids are going to go to school for free at any state university. So that's Indiana University, USI, Purdue. There's a bunch of them, a bunch of great universities throughout the state. That's worth a lot of money, and it's something that's not in almost any other state in the country. Another big thing is House Bill 1010 got passed into law back in 2019. And basically what this does is it is eliminating any sort of tax on military retirement income. So this is a big deal for us here in Indiana. We put in a lot of time and effort to get this passed through, and we're excited to let people know about it. There's other things too that a lot of states have: property tax deductions that vary based on your disability status, work-on service, that type of thing. Reduced fees for hunting and fishing licenses is another big perk. And aside from just the state benefits, big selling points for Indiana in general. On our website, we talk a lot about these 5 different regions of the state as we've broken down: Northwest, Northeast, Central, Southwest, and Southeast. Each one of those regions has a great mix of urban and rural communities. Even if these urban communities aren't directly in Indiana. So for example, take the Southeast region. Southeast, right across the river down there in Southeast Indiana is Louisville. So, you've got this major city right there, but then you've got tons of beautiful countryside just outside of it with great jobs, affordable living, and conveniently, that's actually right where Lowe's distribution center is located. We've got other great things in Indiana that if you're from here, you might not think about. We have seasons, for example. It gets hot in the summer, it gets cold in the winter, we get snow, but not too much snow. It gets hot, but it's not too hot. We get that good mix. We're not all stacked up on top of each other like a lot of the coastal communities are across the country. I'd say we have a competent state government. We've got a surplus, a financial surplus. Unlike some of our neighboring states and communities, they're generally pretty level-headed. So it's a good place to raise a family. My dad's from California. He chose to raise his family in Southwest Indiana specifically because it was such a great place, solid place to raise a family. All right, so let's get, so right as I get to the employer spotlight, our guest has left the room. So I'm assuming he'll be back here in a second. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll give him a second to rejoin. Now, are there any questions? First of all, we take this quick pause. Gun laws as well. That's another thing that I know a lot of folks in the military care about. We've got great gun laws here in Indiana. I think that's one of the first things I did when I got here is got my lifetime concealed carry permit. Super easy, super affordable. It's some of those little things that make a difference. That some of, for example, my brother-in-law is a Marine out in Camp Pendleton right now, and he's not allowed to have basically anything. So he's always a little bit jealous whenever he comes out here. All right. Let's see. Let me check my email real quick and make sure Michael's finding his way back in. One thing I do want to throw out as well, if you haven't already created a profile on our website, even if you have over the past couple months, one of the good things is you should be receiving a T-shirt. So we've got T-shirts hot off the presses that we're going to be mailing out to everyone that creates a profile. And anybody you know that wants one, got to create a profile first. Now, traditionally, what we do is we also, in addition to doing these virtual events, we go out to military bases. Before COVID shut us down, we were on a different military base just about every week. As soon as we're allowed, we're going to get back out there. So if you are still in the military and you want to come visit us at one of those events, you're more than welcome. Yeah. These are the T-shirts, by the way. So create a profile. We'll be getting one of those here in the next week or two. And all right, so we got Michael back in, I think. Michael, are you there?
I am. I fell off for some reason. Good old age of technology and working remote, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate it, Wes. I'm going to actually make sure I bring in our operations manager from our North Vernon, Indiana location. So I just brought him in through the speak function, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share a little bit about Lowe's, because you may not know Lowe's, actually. You may think Lowe's is your small little hardware store in your hometown, and I can tell you it is much bigger. We have quite a bit. So we'll start off by just telling you a little bit about our history. So Lowe's was actually founded in 1921, and it started as a small town. By the numbers, real quick here on Lowe's and what you see 18 million customers served a week. We have over 300,000 associates. I think we are now approaching 320, I want to say, with all the hiring that we've been doing lately. We have 2,200 stores between the U.S. and Canada. As well as some pretty cool initiatives going on. So we have our technology initiative, which is a $500 million investment per year for the next 4 years to improve in our technology, to bring us to the world leader in retail technology. We're actually building a new site in Charlotte, and we're really innovating towards being the top of the line when it comes to retailing. We also are putting a very large investment, $1.7 billion, in our supply chain function. So, like Wes mentioned, one of our RDCs is actually in North Vernon, Indiana, and we are looking to actually expand our supply chain. We opened a brand new direct fulfillment center right in Tennessee that does 75% of the United States with 2-day shipping. We're looking to open another one on the West Coast, so 1-day shipping will be coming soon. And we're really looking to make sure that we have a great customer service for all of our customers, no matter how you shop with Lowe's. Some of the cool things as veterans, since we're talking to a lot of veterans here, we'll talk a little bit about some of the really cool aspects about being a veteran at Lowe's and what Lowe's does for veterans. We have 20,000 plus veterans. Those are the veterans that we know of. There are probably a lot more than that. And there's 20,000 of us running around the company. You see us everywhere. Another cool thing is this camo vest you see on. So if you run into a Lowe's, it's kind of turned into a VFW on Saturday mornings. There's a lot of coffee going on, a lot of stories being shared, but it's a really cool aspect to be able to see a veteran. You see the camo vest, that's one of our veterans. Stop by, say hello. It's a really cool way to kind of identify them. And what we do in the community really matters to us. So last year in 2019, we did 330,000 hours of volunteer hours across the country, as well as $42 million donated through Lowe's and Lowe's Foundation. I can tell you 2020, that number has been absolutely blown out of the water. We are trying to be as good of a corporate responsible company as we can, to include small business grants, helping with PPE for not only healthcare workers, but businesses that are trying to reopen, as well as the military. We've donated tons of product across the military as well. So next slide here. Let me see if I can get this to move real quick. In 2019, we actually started what we call Home, and this is how we support the military, right? So I'm Air Force. I was 6 years in the Air Force. I was a mechanic. I was on the flight line. I kind of consider that the grunt of the Air Force, to be honest, because you are the only one that's probably not in air conditioning. But You're out and about. So we started Home, and Home is really, it's dedicated to honoring our military every day. So we have our partners that we work with across the country. So USO, INvets, Operation Finally Home, Building Homes for Heroes, The Mission Continues. Those are all our national brands. But then we have our partners where we do a lot of local stuff. So, INvets is considered one of our partners when it comes to employment. We have partners in every single state that focuses on local employment and focuses in on helping us employ veterans and military spouses. So you kind of see a little bit about what we do there. We do scholarships, grants, DIY projects. We build homes, we do home modifications, and we have some large volunteer efforts going on with Mission Continues around affordable housing across the country, as well as natural disasters. So those are fantastic aspects as well. What you guys are all here for is jobs, right? So we're trying to find out more about roles that are available, but you're also trying to learn a little bit more about us as a company. In Indiana, currently, right now, I looked it up right before we got on here, we have over 500 roles available right now. That is from Northwest Indiana, where I'm originally from Valparaiso, all the way down to North Vernon. We're in the southeast portion. We have so many different opportunities. It is crazy. And you don't have to be on a sales floor. Maybe you don't want to be on a sales floor, but I can tell you that retail, logistics, and our contact center in Indy, all of them are very similar to the military because it's not the same thing you do every day. Every day is different. Every day is fast paced. I can tell you from working in retail on the store floor for 3 years, it changes every day. It is not something that's the same, and it's very rewarding. So in our stores, we have store managers, assistant store managers. You have sales floor department supervisors. Those are great for our veterans, as those are leadership positions, which obviously we can teach you retail. I can't teach you leadership a lot of times. So the leadership aspect in those is fantastic for our veterans coming out. Delivery coordinator, delivery drivers, sales associates, pro loaders, receiving, stocking, cashiers. And then one of my favorite teams, merchandise servicing team, is pretty cool. It's a team that actually goes around and actually executes game plans in our stores. So when you walk in and you see all the fantastic product in front of you, including the displays, like Christmas time, all the Christmas trees are out, it smells fantastic. They are actually the ones responsible for setting that up. And then in the summer, when you look at the grills, that team is also the one that changes all that. So it's different every day. They travel around the different stores and they actually set up those game plans. It's a really unique team. But our stores are fantastic areas. Other areas in Indiana specific, I really want to call out our supply chain areas. So we have our North Vernon location, and there's several different opportunities there. I can tell you right now, there are 200 plus roles available at that one location. So that includes day shift, night shift, and weekend shifts there at that office or at that distribution center. And you have so many different roles. You have operation manager, operation assistant manager, ops coaches, team members, mechanics. Do you know we have mechanics? Yeah. So we have mechanics inside of our distribution centers as well as engineers. So there's a ton of different opportunities there. And I want to go forward after this and kind of talk a little bit about, applying and how to get in contact with us. But I actually want to bring in one of our fantastic team members, actually, who is at the North Vernon location. And is a veteran himself. He is actually our day operation manager at that North Vernon location. His name is Bruce Peak, and he's a fantastic individual. So I'm actually we're going to just shoot it, and we're going to have a fireside chat. And I'm just going to ask Bruce. I've never actually asked Bruce these questions. I'm just shooting for the moon. I'm going to ask him a few questions about transition. We're going to talk a little bit about his background. And then we'll talk about how Lowe's has helped him as being a veteran, and kind of talk a little bit more about working in our distribution center in North Vernon. So, Bruce, first, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And Wes, hearing about your program, it sounds like a great thing. And I wish I would have had something like that when I transitioned out of the military. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to point out too, and you may get to this, Michael, but I just did a quick Google search on North Vernon because I've been there, and it's a beautiful part of the state. It's a rural part of the state. According to Google, it's got about 6,700 people population-wise. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So, I know my goal when I left the military is I wanted to find a town of less than 20,000 people where I could, walk out on my front porch, not seeing a single person, hopefully, and still have a career track that can make me a decent living for my family. And so I think the facility you're at is probably one of the exact places that we created INvets to help, because that's that exact opportunity. It's just people don't know about it.
Plenty of areas like that, plenty of opportunity as far as work goes. And we are located basically in between Louisville and Indianapolis. So you have a little bit of, you're in short driving distance if you want that city interaction or entertainment.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So, Bruce, can you just tell us a little bit about your background? Give us a little bit. I know you're a veteran yourself. I know you didn't have, you had a little bit of a different transition. So take us through, just your background and kind of a little bit about your transition out of the military.
So I was in the Army for 5 years. I spent 2 years in Panama and 3 years at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. I was outside the walls. Although I spent a lot of time inside the walls, I was a military policeman. I worked a patrol narcotics dog. When I transitioned out of the military, I became a police officer, and I was in law enforcement for about 13 years before I transitioned into Lowe's.
So you've had technically three careers, right?
Oh yeah,
military,
yes.
law enforcement, and
I had my own business there for a while. So, but yes.
Yeah. So, and I know you talked a little bit about not having INvets, right? So you didn't have that. So tell us a little bit about that transition.
So going into law enforcement, I was going into a field that was very similar to the environment that I was in the military. So it was kind of that same job type function. There was a lot of structure. There was the kind of the same mindset. So once I got into once I was able to get onto a police department, the transition was fairly easy. Although, Wes, I heard you talk about kind of being humble. I had to learn that very quickly. When you're dealing with the civilian sector, it's very different, and you have to learn that how to be humble and have some humility, and to treat people really a little bit differently. I would call it a little softer than you would maybe with your fellow people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis in the military. So that transition into that was fairly easy. With a lot of learnings throughout the years on how I serve the community. When I transitioned from law enforcement to Lowe's, now that was a big change. What I found is the things that I had learned in the military and the things that I had learned being in law enforcement, that a lot of those skills were transferable. Although I'd never been truly in a warehouse and worked in that type of environment, the skills that I had learned in dealing with people, in leadership, were very transferable. So basically, the challenge is just learning the processes. Mm-hmm. When I came to Lowe's, I started here as a coach, which is a kind of a frontline supervisor. In a certain department with about 25 people. So once you learn those processes and you apply those transferable skills that I had learned from the military and law enforcement, you were able to grow fairly quickly within the company.
That's fantastic. And I think, Bruce, you just hit on a great point. I mean, I can stand on a soapbox all day long. And as I do these webinars and I talk to veterans that are getting out, as well as military spouses, with Lowe's, the main aspect that we need and we're looking for is that leadership aspect. And we're looking for you to be able to lead individuals and be able to coach individuals along the way. And I think you just hit strong on that. So with that being said, I mean, you came in, you had your leadership aspect, you just had to learn the process, which is one of the key things for really anything in supply chain or in our stores. But tell me a little bit about how, Lowe's has supported you as a veteran, how you see Lowe's and what Lowe's does for veterans, and how that feels to be a veteran in Lowe's and see the work that we do.
Coming into Lowe's, as far as being a veteran, to be honest with you, I don't find it any different than we treat any other person that we bring in. My experience with Lowe's here in North Vernon is that it truly is like a family atmosphere. We care about each other. We take care of each other. We push each other. It doesn't mean that it's always roses and flowers. We push each other. We try to we get the job done. But it is truly a family type of environment. And we give ourselves that opportunity to grow. There's a lot of opportunity to grow within Lowe's. I started here as a coach. I moved through every department in every coach position. I've worked on all 3 shifts as a coach. Within about a 5-year period, was then promoted to assistant ops manager, where I ran the night shift by myself. And then within about a 2.5 to 3 year period, was then promoted to the ops manager position on weekend shift, to where I was, supervising about 278 people, and then now on day shift. So lots of opportunities, lots of support from the leaders at Lowe's, just to try to make everybody better, to support our team members, to ultimately take care of our customers in the stores.
So do you mind going over that? Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to step on your toes. I was just going to ask if you could go over that kind of timeline one more time. What was the amount of time that you spent in the very first position you took?
It was roughly 5 years.
But so talking about moving to these different departments, how long did you spend on the first team that you were a coach on?
On the first team, which we would call building department, there are 3 different coach positions in that building department, and I was in that for about 2 of the first 5 years.
Okay.
At the time, that department had the most job function in it and held the most team members in it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to your point, Wes, I think where you're going is upward mobility with us, because at Lowe's, I can tell you, we have veterans that have been in some roles for 5 months, and then they're automatically going forward again. I was in my first one for a year. Bruce was in his for about 2, but we do promote a lot from within, and we love to be able to grow our own family members into different roles. And Bruce kind of hit it on the head. I was trying to get him to say, everybody knows us as a great veteran organization. We support a lot of veterans, but it doesn't matter if you're a veteran or if you're not a veteran. We treat everybody the same. And that's it. He did hit that right on the head. That is exactly how it is across the board. Everybody is equal. We support everybody as much as we can. But yeah, so when it comes to career progression, like you said, sometimes you have to take 2 steps back. And I love everything you showed beforehand, because you were preaching from my mind. Like, it felt like I was preaching the same stuff. It's the same stuff I tell all of our veterans all the time. Sometimes you have to take a step back, and you need to look and find yourself the company, not the job. Because what's going to end up happening is, if you find the right company, you love the company, you love the people you're around, there's always opportunities to move around, no matter how small the company, no matter how big the company. Veterans seem to put their nose down during hard times and get things done. And that's one of the great things about hiring veterans. So it actually shows, and you move forward. So I do want to, however, open it up. If anybody inside the audience has a question for Bruce or myself, we're going to actually be able to take those and talk about those. But I kind of want to just go ahead and say, hey, Bruce, can you give me a high-end overview, since we have 200 of these team member roles available right now in your distribution center? Can you give me a high-level overview of a day in a team member's job duty and what they do?
out of those 200 roles, there's a lot of different things that you're going to be that you may be asked to do depending on the role. We're in the business of moving boxes. That's what we do. So in the receiving side, obviously they're going to bring the boxes in the building, and we're either going to move them inside the building to store to pick later, or they're going to be moving those product to the shipping to be put straight on a truck and moved to the stores to our customers. In the building area, the middle of the building type work, they're going to be putting a lot of that freight that would be coming off of those receiving trailers that we're going to store in the building. They're going to be putting those items away. They could be inducting those items or picking those items to get them to the shipping dock so they could be sent to the customers. There's a lot of different functions in that building side. And then on the shipping side, obviously, we are getting boxes off the conveyors. We're taking the larger items that are coming to the doors, and we're loading those trucks as tight as we possibly can in the safest manner we possibly can, and actually in the most customer-friendly way that we can, to get it to the stores that makes it as easy and customer-friendly as possible for them to unload, so they can get that on the floors to service our customers. So there's a whole lot of different
and I know, yeah, and I know we're all anticipating football season right now. So to put how big your operation is in perspective, how many football fields is your building?
Oh my gosh, 16 or 17, I believe. It's 1.3 million. It's 1.3 million square feet, and we have two buildings here at the Indiana RDC.
Yeah. So just to think about that operation, and you think about the logistics there, and I mean, you were a police officer in the military. I was a mechanic. We both probably had enough experience in logistics while we were in to be able to do our a logistics role as we go in our civilian life and when we grow up career.
Yes, and this is the work that we do here, and we tell the team members that are coming in, if you come in at the team member level, it's very physical work. So if they have the want to be here, it's a partnership. We're going to help them get there. We have a kind of ramp to standard program. So when they walk on the floor for the first time, they're not expected to hit those certain levels that we want to get them to. And we actually ramp them up. It's like a 9-week program to get them up to that 100% mark. The team members are eligible for bonuses past that 100% mark. And the coaches and the trainers all work with them. And as long as they can kind of handle that physical portion of it and they have the want to be here, we'll train them to do and help them through that to make sure that they're successful.
It's fantastic. I love it. And then this great call out about the bonuses. I do appreciate that. And I know there is definitely a lot of opportunities. I don't think a lot of individuals know retail has a very large, has a bonus structure that is quite nice compared to the other companies. One of the things I will mention, we have our standard benefit package across the board if you're a full-time employee with us in either salary or full-time method. But one of my favorite things about Lowe's, and Wes, I know you've been at a few companies and this may resonate with you, but for our 401k, we do a match, which is great, like any other company, but ours vests automatically. So you don't have to actually wait for that 3 to 6 months for that to actually vest. It's automatically invested to you. That is a great resource when it comes to benefit-wise. Our packages are great. We do have a very nice time off policy. And then we have a lot of other different opportunities from skilled trades trainings. So you can actually work part-time in our store or distribution centers, and then you can actually do skilled trades training. So if you don't know what you want to do, and you maybe want to do HVAC repair, carpentry, you just don't have the certifications, you don't want to use your GI Bill, you can work in our stores part-time and then go to school part-time. Lowe's pays for that schooling. Lowe's pays you to work part-time. And then we'll actually help you find an apprenticeship with one of our vendors, that's our Lowe's Pros. So you can actually do your apprenticeship, and you can, while doing that apprenticeship, still work at Lowe's. You can take a leave of absence and go do the apprenticeship full time. And then after your apprenticeship, if you want to leave Lowe's and go and start a career in skilled trades, we're okay with that. That's what we want. We want you to be able to grow with us, and not only with us, but also just personally. And there are a ton of different opportunities, including education benefits, that are there for you guys to actually, for our associates to grow in a career moving forward. So, Bruce, I really appreciate you stopping by and doing a fireside chat with me. I know you have a lot of stuff going on there in North Vernon. We have not stopped moving, I think, since February right now. And I know you guys are coming up on your busy season, right? We just had our busy season for our stores, because spring is actually our Black Friday. That's our go time in the stores. And now it's busy season for Bruce, because Bruce is getting ready to ship out all the stuff for Halloween and Christmas and the season's holiday. So it is go time for Bruce. So I really appreciate you stopping by and sharing some time with us.
I appreciate it. And just to let you know, we have been in full go mode since Easter. So it has not slowed down, nor has it let up. And we do not see that changing in the near future. So we have to continue to fill those stores, and then we've got to refill our DC because our inventories are low also. So hopefully those sales stay up and we're able to get our customer service. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruce. Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
So before I stop, I just want to go over how you can actually apply, how you can actually get connected with us. Maybe you're one of those that was not like me, who was ready to get out and was out doing research 2 years beforehand, because that was not me. It was like, oh, I got like 2 months until I get out. I should probably start looking. So you can join our military talent community. It's a fantastic community. We actually do hot jobs. Learn more about Lowe's, hear from veterans like you did with Bruce. We actually do podcasts and put those on there. We have guides that actually will show you, based off your rank, where that kind of fits in the stores. These could be the dotted line for you. That includes job title translation, because I know that is one of the biggest things when you're looking at a job description in a website. Everybody's got a different name for the same job. There's like 5 different names for this one same job. And the job descriptions look the same, but the title is going to be different. So we actually have resources that can help you actually with that translation. And if you're interested in getting those resources and you don't want to wait for this, there's going to be a follow-up link on the next slide. You can feel free to email that address, and we'll actually send that to you as well. But yeah, so it's a great resource. I highly suggest signing up for it. You can also go on our website, jobs.lowes.com/military, hear more about how we support the military. There's also a map on there with all of our events coming up. All of them are virtual this year, but as you can see, we do travel the United States from North Carolina to San Diego, and we are even doing virtual events overseas now. So you will see all those events as well. And then the last one is just how to apply. How do you apply? How do you find the roles at Lowe's? Like I said, jobs.lowes.com. You can also go into the store, or you can pick up the cell phone, and you can be like being a millennial and text. So you can text jobs to Lowe's 56937. It'll actually allow you to start your application process there. You can actually almost fully apply via your phone and be able to do that as well. And then follow up if you have any questions. If you've applied to a role, INvets is going to help you. We're more than willing to help you. Feel free to email us at militaryrec@lowes.com. That goes right to the Lowe's military recruiting team. We are solely dedicated to helping you. That is my job as a military recruiting strategist. We help strategize and kind of are the center of excellency for the entire company in helping understand military resumes. We send your resume over with usually bullets around how they fit into the role. So please feel free to reach out at any time. But yeah, Wes, man, I appreciate you guys having us. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to bring Bruce on, but you got any questions that I maybe could answer since Bruce is gone, or anything that you want to touch on before?
Yeah, I think just to circle back, looking at these comments, Jerry, I hope you actually calculated this, but he says it was actually 18 football fields under roof. Did the math.
See, that's an ammo troop for you. That's what happens when you get an ammo guy from the Air Force. They got to make sure the math calculated right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think at one point you hit on a little bit ago about the education, getting that training while working. That's something I didn't consider at all. I mentioned I got my MBA when I got out, and I showed up to my cohort, and only then did I realize that probably 75% of the people in grad school with me were getting it paid for by their employer. I didn't even know that was a thing. So I was sitting there, like a chump paying out of pocket. And I hadn't even considered factoring that into my job search. So I think that's a great thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have 9/11 job bill, which everybody should now, that's transferable. So you can transfer that to your kids. I know Indiana has that great program if you have a certain disability, but if you don't, there are so many different opportunities out there to continue your education through employers, through just nonprofits, that you may not have to use a GI Bill and then you can pass it down. So it's a fantastic resource and something you definitely want to look at when it comes to the benefits of what they offer.
Yeah. Well, hey, Michael, I really appreciate the time. I really appreciate everything you guys do. That Lowe has such a veteran-centric kind of focus on recruiting. And then, obviously I also enjoy the discount and the parking spots and all that stuff you guys do. Every time I go to Lowe's, and I've been part of your surge these past few months, I drive past the Home Depot to go to Lowe's just because of that stuff.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Well, I appreciate you having me, and I really do. It's great to talk to some individuals that are looking at Indiana, being somebody that's bred and born there, 18 years in Northwest Indiana. It is a fantastic area to grow up. If you do, I wasn't one of those that wanted to be back in the countryside, but if you do want to be, have your opportunities to be a little bit distant, but still have metropolitans around. I had Chicago. I mean, I got a cup right here. Like, we were up in Chicago at least once a month, if not every 2 weeks, but we still were able to get away and get quiet. So can't speak highly enough about Indiana itself and the work that you guys are doing. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Michael. I appreciate everybody for joining in. Again, feel free to contact any of us via LinkedIn. You could also, if you go to the INvets website, after you create a profile, you can also find all of our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And you should be getting an email after this with a link to the recording of this. Feel free to pass it on to anybody else that's transitioning, anybody that's in the job hunt right now. We'd love to reach as many people as possible. So appreciate everyone's time and have a great rest of your week.